Well, it is high school spotlight time, and we take you back to the year 1980. Gas was $1.25 per gallon. The Empire Strikes Back from the Star Wars franchise was the top grossing movie with over $209 million. And the #1 TV show was the nighttime soap opera Dallas, featuring Who Shot JR episode. And I was 6 years old. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Steelers won their 4th Super Bowl. And speaking of winning titles, the Giles Spartans went a perfect 14-0 en route to winning the Group AA VHSL state football title as they beat Parkview Sterling 33-32, featuring running back Alan Pinkett, who went on to Notre Dame as well as play football in college and the pros. Now, 45 years later, a book by coach and author Jeremy Haymore documenting the great team is set to come out on July 29th. It's called the Bandana Express. And I spoke with Coach Haymore about why he wrote this book on the Spartans.
My dad, he played for Narrows, which is in Giles County, in the late 60s. And he played for Bob Price, which was Harry Ragsdale's successor, and so they were still running a single wing. And he told me about it when I was growing up, and you know, it's kind of fascinating. As we would go visit my grandmother, we'd pass Ragsdale Field, and as a small child, you know, he'd say, "This is where I played at," and so that was kind of an interest point for me there. But then when I started to get a little older and decided I was going to go into teaching and coaching, and you know, with coaching football, kind of learning my way and just taking an interest in different offenses and stuff, I always noticed this offense that I'd see like on the Friday night highlight shows, Giles, and I was always like, you know, that's different than what everybody else is doing. So I kind of took an interest that way. And then I was talking to my dad one day, and we kind of put together, you know, I did that was the same offense that he had run, you know, when he was playing, and so there was a connection there, and I liked it, and I studied it a little bit. And then about 2010, which seems forever ago now, you know, I was kind of thinking about doing a project and doing something. Having an English background, I thought a book might be something cool I'd like to get into and do as a side project, but you know, I didn't have the clout to write like an X's and O book on a single wing or anything like that. But, you know, I said, well, I wonder if anybody's ever told the story of how it got started at Giles, because they had, you know, at that time they were coming off a couple state championship appearances in the mid-2000s. And so they were still their tradition. Coach Ragsdale had just retired. And so I contacted Jeff Williams, who was had taken the head job by then, and asked him if anybody had ever done it, and he said no. He thought it'd be a great idea, so I reached out to Coach Ragsdale and sat down with him and spent all day with him one day, and just he went through, basically just told me the whole story. But you know, I had heard bits and pieces of it from a roommate I had when I first started teaching, who told me about this great game against Alan Pinkett and Parkview Sterling, and how they, you know, they won at the very end, and just kind of all the mythology that goes along with growing up there. He went to Giles, you know, and so he had heard this legend and heard about all these players, and so when I heard that, I knew, you know, this was an interesting story. But it wasn't quite until I decided to go and talk to Coach Ragsdale that I was like, you know, this could be a story that I could tell. So, you know, I was still coaching at the time, continued coaching as I was working on it. Of course, we ran a single wing at Stanton River, and you know, had some success with it there. And so it was something that really kind of became part of me. It was part of what I was doing currently. It was part of this book I was writing, and really just kind of, you know, how I saw my coaching heroes, you know, and just looked up to the guys that had been at that school and built such a great program and built, you know, tradition, really. I think that's a lot of that comes through in the book, is really how they started that tradition that still, you know, rings true to this day.